All right, today we're diving into a pretty dark parable, a story that's really a chilling warning about the human spirit. We're going to unpack the tale of Salvio Polito, a figure who starts out as an architect of comfort and ends as a predator of the soul. It's a story all about the terrifying bargain of trading greatness for safety.
This one sentence, it's the key to the whole thing. It gets right to the heart of this fatal bargain made by a civilization that has basically chosen to sleep rather than to strive. I mean, what happens when the pain of growth isn't seen as necessary anymore, but just as something to be dodged at all costs? Let's get into it. So, to really understand this disturbing journey, we're going to follow Salvio Polito's story through 5 distinct acts. We'll watch him transform from a guardian of peace into an agent of nothingness, step by agonizing step. Okay, so first, let's meet Salvio Polito in his original form. At this point, he's the high priest of the polished floor. Think of him as the chief architect of a society that's built itself this beautiful, comfortable, and totally stagnant gilded cage. This right here frames the core choice his culture made. You've got the agony of creation on one side, that's the struggle, the risk, everything you need for real growth. And on the other, you have unearned sanctuary, a life of perfect safety, but one that's completely empty of meaning. And well, they chose the sanctuary. Polito's whole job is to preach this new gospel, this new trinity of values. He teaches that safety is the highest good, comfort is the ultimate goal, and stagnation is just the price you have to pay. His words are basically a form of spiritual anesthesia, shielding everyone from any harsh truth. It's a society that, no longer knows how to die with dignity because it's completely forgotten how to truly live. So his main objective is all psychological. He has to blunt what the source material calls the uncanny hook, that little voice inside all of us that pushes us toward greatness, toward risk. And how does he do it? He lowers the tightrope of life until it's literally resting on the floor. He makes spiritual risk a complete illusion. But here's the thing about a perfect, polished world. It's incredibly fragile. An illusion like that can't last forever. Now we're going to see how a single crack in that perfect surface doesn't just break the system, it triggers a horrifying change in its architect. This is the catalyst. The uncanny mirror shatters, and the calm surface of their world just breaks apart. And for the first time, the void that was always there, right beneath the polished floor, the terrifying reality of the fractal infinite, is exposed for all to see. The comfort was all a lie. So as Polito stares into this abyss, something inside him just snaps. He's struck by a refracted violet light from the broken mirror, but he doesn't try to fix the illusion. No, he undergoes what's called a Faustian inversion. He embraces the void. His white priestly robes are symbolically swapped for a royal mantle of purple and gold. He's no longer a protector. He becomes the violet adversary. And this just shows you the total 180 in his purpose. As the high priest, his job was to protect the herd from risk. But as the violet adversary, his new mission is to hunt the strong. He starts studying the rare individuals who still try, who still strive, the overman, not to help them, but to completely neutralize their creative will. So, as the adversary, his methods become insidiously predatory. He develops a whole new anti-theology, a dark philosophy designed not to build up the human spirit, but to systematically consume it. This is the absolute core of his gospel of the belly. He whispers this corrosive idea into the ear of anyone who dares to be an individual. You know that spark of individuality, that unique sense of self that drives all creation? He reframes it as a fundamental bug in the system, an error that needs to be erased. By convincing his victims that their entire identity is just an illusion, he dismantles them from the inside out. He literally chips away at the vibrant complexity of their soul until all that's left is a uniform, featureless brick, which is the perfect spiritual fuel for the mindless, monstrous machine he now serves. All right, let's move on to his next tactic, which is maybe his most cunning. Here we'll see how he takes the very symbols of virtue and completely twists them to keep the strong chained down by their own conscience. He becomes an expert tracker of the soul in motion. He watches those few who still dare to walk the tightrope of creation, and he waits. At their moments of greatest vulnerability, when they're exhausted or scared, he whispers a fatal drop of doubt. He reframes their agony of creation as just a pointless mistake. Polydor is a master at exploiting this feeling. He convinces creators that the burden of choice and the weight of freedom aren't gifts. They're actually unbearable curses. And his rhetoric is so good that the creators themselves, eventually break down and actively beg for their own chains, just for the promise of a little sleep.
This whole tactic turns the powerful creator into a caged lion. The drive for self-mastery, what we call the will to power, just completely collapses under all this doubt and exhaustion. It transforms into a final lethargic will to nap, where the only thing you want is to sleep and forget. He engineers a total inversion of values. In his system, striving for greatness, that's now evil because it disturbs the herd. Strength is seen as arrogance, creation is selfish. He crowns pity and meekness as the highest virtues, poisoning the very drive for self-mastery. The herd is taught to worship a polished cross, not as a symbol of sacrifice, but as a shield to hide from the difficult, bright sun of true awareness. And now we come to his ultimate conclusion, his final, crushing philosophy that he uses to prove that all human action, all striving, all creation is completely and utterly meaningless.
This is it, his final argument, the logic of zero. He demonstrates with cold, hard calculation that every variable of a life, every win, every loss, all of it, ultimately just cancels itself out. The grand equation of your entire existence simply equals zero.
With this logic, he encourages what's called a great refusal, a refusal to even try, to create, to claim sovereignty over your own soul. He guides the spirit toward what he calls the happiness of the grave, which is the ultimate peace that comes from just not existing. Under his cold stare, the universe is revealed to be heavy, deaf, and perfectly finished, with no room for you to make any mark at all. So the parable of Salvio Pallido is really a powerful warning. He is the personification of our own internal jester. You know, that voice that laughs at our ambitions and whispers that it's just easier to stay on the floor. He represents that seductive logic that argues for safety over striving. And so the takeaway is this. Pallido's gaze confirms our deepest fear, that greatness is expensive, that the agony of creation is immense. And his final whispered question is one we all have to answer for ourselves. Are we sure we can afford it?